startlingly new data showing the dreams of home ownership is increasingly out of reach for younger Americans. According to the National Association of Realtors, the median age for first-time home buyers in the U.S. has now reached 40 years old. Just 4 years ago, that number was 33 years old. And when that survey started back in 1981, the median home buyer, look at that, was 29. Here in the Bay Area, the market for first-time home buyers is even more daunting. Kenny Choi spoke to realtors and house hunters about why finding a starter home has become impossible for many people in the region.
This particular neighborhood is amazing because it's so quiet.
He's sold more than 300 homes in his real estate career, but David DuPont sees a very different environment these days for home buyers and realtors.
You can think of the housing market as like a staircase, right? In order for the second stair to be healthy, the first stair has to be healthy.
The latest Redfin housing data shows the median price of a Marin County home is just over $1.5 million. DuPont is getting ready to list one of his clients' homes in San Rafael.
The best part about this house is the backyard.
He acknowledges this house isn't the kind of starter home the vast majority of first-time buyers can afford. That lack of entry-level supply is problematic.
Over the last, really 25 years, we've really seen a inflated increase in the Bay Area home buying. And I think really this started back when the technology companies really started to move into the Bay Area. Obviously, technology has always been here. You had some of the bigger companies, Apple, Google, Yahoo. Some of those companies were really getting started. Facebook had just come into the marketplace. And when they started to make headway, you started to see larger wages come in. So home buyers or home sellers really were taking advantage of the tech population of folks that coming into the marketplace. What it did for a lot of those home buyers, though, over the many years, is that you still have people who lived here, who grew up here and wanted to get into the market, right? Maybe they just didn't have the means to do it when they were in their 20s or 30s. Obviously, a lot of those folks who are still here have families, and when one of the things about the Bay Area, you have kind of two societies happening here, right? You have like the elite or, the upper, level folks who are making in tech and healthcare, and some of those, other type of jobs and titles. But then you also have just real working wages here in Oakland. You have people who work for the counties and the city and the state, right? It's like honestly a kind of a government hub in Oakland, California. Those wages didn't move up as fast as the people who are working in tech. So tech was the direct reflection of how home buying here in the Bay Area market really affected prices. So in Marin, the city that they're talking about, which is a coastal city right next to San Francisco, 1.5 million is probably on the low end, right? So, but the surrounding cities around that are also really, at this point, kind of unaffordable, right? I mean, you have 2 and 3 bedrooms. These are, brand new homes. And we do obviously have a housing shortage here in the Bay Area. There's not enough houses to be built. What you're seeing a lot of now are condo type of buildings being built, or basically large apartments, right? 100 plus units. But ultimately, the two things that really is affecting the housing market here is rents as well, and then wages, right? Also, when tech workers came here initially, they weren't buying homes, they were renting. Landlords knew that they could charge higher rents for people who are making more money. And that has really set the floor of what a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom rents for, or a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom and above, right? And so, being from the Bay Area, having seen this huge development of incomes kind of like set the standard. I mean, in the Bay Area alone, if $270,000 is kind of your poverty line, they say if you don't make that, like, you don't really have a reason of working here. But you remember, not all wages have crept up to the tech sector, right? The starting salaries at for tech companies might be 150, 175, right? Most people are still working entry level jobs. They're step up as basis. If you're a teacher, you get a 3% raise every year, right? So keeping up with the cost of living here has been a real problem. So ultimately, what ends up happening is you had cities like Marin and San Francisco, and even Oakland to some degree, really start to set the foundation for housing prices that have really kind of stuck around for a long time. We're starting to see, at this point, for the first time, a real slowdown, but I think that's also effective of, or as a direct result of the housing market itself, as well as the job market, right? So, it's definitely something interesting to see. And for those folks in our 40s right now, this is a real, problem, right? People aren't really hitting their career goals until their late 30s and 40s, right? And because inflation and because the real wages haven't went up, we're seeing a slowdown in home ownership. So very interesting to look at.
They end up spending a lot of time looking at houses, end up spending a lot of time writing offers and not getting houses, and then they kind of give up.
Newly released numbers from the National Association of Realtors show the share of first-time buyers is now just 1 in 5, hitting an all-time low.
There's another reason why, because there's so much competition here in the Bay Area. I mean, a lot of investors are attracted to the housing market here, right? They know they can buy a foreclosure or make a deal with someone who can't afford to live there anymore and put that the house back on the market for double or triple the amount of money that they invested, right? So now you have a lot of investors coming in with all cash offers, right? Closing in 7 days, putting these houses back on the market in 30 to 45 days and taking off. And even that right there in itself is always going to be another level of home ownership that you have to compete with, right? So I think a lot of folks, in their 40s, 30 to 40, feel like it's unattainable. So either, not looking to own homes at all. I've heard people say, hey, I don't even want to own a home. I'll just rent. I've heard people say that many times. They're also just moving away. They're not even considering buying a house here in the Bay Area, right? It's unattainable. They're moving to cities like Stockton and Sacramento. Sacramento's home prices are actually going up as well because you have a lot of job creation there. Tech is also starting to move to Sacramento and other sectors, right? But they're moving to these other cities because they're still attainable in terms of home. Now, what ends up happening now, people are traveling, right, from the Stocktons, from the Antiochs, and all these other surrounding cities, right? And they call those bedroom cities, right, where they just sleep there, but they work in Oakland and San Francisco, or they call it bedroom cities or bedroom towns or something like that. It's a very interesting word. But see, those places, like sometimes people are spending like 2 to 3 hours in traffic to get back to work. Got a good friend. He is a guy who I met when I was working with one of the bus companies here in Oakland. Good dude. He's actually the person who actually got me into the contract and allowed me to make the deal with him. He lives in Stockton. He told me he spends 2.5 hours each way every day going from Stockton to Oakland, 5 days a week, right? I did the math. Each way, that's 5 hours a day in traffic. That's 20 hours a week that he's spending driving every single day. So it's really it's had more of an effect on just really our society here in the Bay Area, because the people there's a lot of people who are from Oakland or from the Bay Area who either just have been pushed out, can't afford it, but still have to work here. Right? And that's been the amazing thing, because these other cities, they don't have the jobs, right? I mean, especially in today's economy, those outskirts cities are really the first places that are being impacted, and people are kind of clamoring for jobs in San Francisco, clamoring for jobs in Oakland, clamoring for jobs here in the tech world. And so then again, with the competition you have with investors, with wholesalers and all these folks who can just come in, get properties really quick. Obviously, as a seller, you just want to do the best deal possible for yourself. You're not really thinking about who's buying it. A lot of times you don't even know who's buying it. Whoever makes the offer and gets closest to what you're willing to take, to accept, they're going to go with. And a lot of times, you just heard it, 1 out of 4 of those people are first-time home buyers. So there's really even no competition on no marketplace right now in the Bay Area for that type of buyer.
Jessica Lautz, Deputy Chief Economist and Vice President of Research, says the implications are staggering.
It also means more gridlock in the housing market. We're just not seeing movement in the same way that we used to.
In fact, the NAR says the share of first-time buyers has contracted by 50% since 2007, underscoring a housing market starved for affordable inventory. That lack of inventory is a major focal point for the Bay Area Council, a public policy organization advocating for statewide housing reforms. Louis Morante is Senior Vice President.
With more supply, we're going to see more people able to buy homes. That's really critical, especially for the Bay Area, where our housing crisis is defined by an acute shortage of homes.
Morante says more legislative efforts that streamline housing approvals and override restrictive local zoning can move the needle in favor of more first-time buyers.
I don't want my first home, honestly. Well, look, here's how I feel about it. Home ownership is home ownership. I don't care if you buy a condo, a fourplex, a duplex, a single family home, whatever you buy is home ownership. And I think it's time for people to really start thinking outside the box. I know how recently there's been talk about, 50-year mortgages. Here's the way I look at it. Someone's going to get a 30-year mortgage, and let's say they do it in a high interest rate era. They're going to do and let's say that they're in that mortgage already for 7 to 10 years, right? They get the opportunity to lower their payment. Guess what? They just started another 30-year mortgage. So you're already in their mortgage for 40 years. So this whole, narrative of like, oh, the 50 years is a bad idea, you're going to pay more money. Who cares? If you were doing this thing right at the end of the day, the property should really never leave the family's possession, right? It should just transfer assets to one generation to another. So I don't care if I have a 50 or 100-year mortgage. There are countries like Japan that have these type of things because they want to make it easy for people to buy. And yes, you're going to spend more money in the current way that we have to lend money, or money is lent to the consumer. But at the end of the day, you are a home owner. So what are some things that buyers can do, right? This is really important. Expand your search radius. I mean, here in the Bay Area, if you really don't have the, the down payment, if you don't have the income, obviously you have interest rates that right now are still very high, right? People have already been doing it, but you have to look outside the Bay Area. And that's just kind of the going fact. And honestly, for a lot of these places in the Bay Area, because these aren't starter homes where people can raise a family, and, and there's a lot going on in some of these urban cities, right? That might be the best option. Explore your first-time home buyer programs like Cal HFA, right? And then also city down payment grants. I know there's a company called, what is that company called? What is it called? I can't remember. There's some type of nonprofit. If you partner with them, they'll go ahead and pay a percentage of your down payment. You have to be in the house for at least 5 years. Like, those things exist. Absolutely look at those. Reevaluate timing, right? Just for a lot of home buyers, right? Staying credit worthy, watching for price corrections. Right now, I think we're going towards a price correction, right? Because of the lack of jobs. Because inventory is staying on the market longer, there's going to be opportunities in the very near future, and we're starting to see that for people to come in, but you have to be ready to go. And then the last thing is, don't give up, right? As a first-time home buyer, don't give up. Make sure that you are always looking on, to become an owner. I don't care how you do it, a 40, 50, 60, 100-year mortgage. Own property, because that is a real asset that is always going to be there. It's not going to go away, right? You could pull equity out of it. You could take that money and go buy another house. There's so many things you could do when you become a homeowner. So I'm interested to see what happens in the next few years. I know the Bay Area has always had kind of a leading market in the nation when it comes to property values, right? And how the economy works. So we'll continue to keep an eye. Hey, you guys, stay safe, stay strong. This is Saving America's Money. I'll talk to you guys soon.